all mutual soldiers, but most of them are mutual soldiers, right? So you knock one out, doesn't mean that your boy on the left is, he's been down too. So it's a help. It's an accurate help. Yeah. Yeah. So D+3 was sought in by Oring yield forces. And again, the wind on Eagle is nasty. It is nasty because there's nothing to break. There's nothing to break up. Air support was non-existent initially, but Navy and Marine aircraft did make their way through the heavy weather to the napalm and Surabaya bases attacking us. Chandler Johnson's 228 was making progress towards the base of the slope, albeit slow distance, where he's at the tip of the spear. E-228, led by my old friend, Colonel Rose, retired Colonel Dave Severance. Severance spread his men out, waiting behind knockout bunkers as American mortar fire dropped in on the Japanese positions. One of, you don't recognize a lot of names. One of Severance's men, Donald Rule, a Montana cowboy, crouched next to Sergeant Hank Hansen and waited for the barrage to come. Rule was a guy, I remember Dave telling me, he lived in trouble. Like, he was only one of those, like, it didn't matter what he did, dude always did something to irritate his company commander. Always was in trouble of some sort. By D-Day, however, Rule had proved that he was one of these new guys. He proved his worth. In a one-man charge against the Japanese blockhouse, Rule killed 9 Japanese, dragged a wounded buddy to safety from 40 yards of open country, and spent the night in a Japanese machine gun nest whose original occupant he killed with a K-bar. As the barrage lifted, Rule and Hansen moved out. Bill, tell us what happens next.
So making their way towards the base, Rule and Hansen worked together, knocking out Japanese positions, taking fire from another position. They both hit the deck. Rule raised his head and heard the hiss of a lit grenade. Seeing it drop 6 feet from his body, Hansen, Rule yelled, "Grenade!" and instinctively threw his body on the weapon, absorbing its entire force and saving the process. Rule was killed instantly and would later receive the Medal of Honor posthumously for his sacrifice. The Japanese fire intensified as evening moved forward. Platoon leader John K. Wells and 3 other Marines taking shelter in a shell crater all were hit as Foreman John Bradley, you remember his name, you know why you remember his name, rushed in to administer first aid. Wells would be evacuated and his platoon would be commanded by Lieutenant Harry Schreier. Japanese fire continued from a pillbox in front of Schreier's men when operator Charles turns the Japanese position into a furnace after a 25-yard crawl under machine gun fire. Still, it wasn't enough Japanese fire from at least 3 pillboxes that held up the enemy advance. It wasn't enough. So, Ernest I. Thomas, who was consistently rated among the best men in Echo 228, knew what to do to stop the fire. Locating 3 Shermans, he led them to the Japanese position and along with Lindbergh and the tanks, knocked out the remaining pillboxes that allowed the rest of the battalion the freedom to break through and surround the base of Surabaya. Thomas was awarded the Navy Cross, and Lindbergh the Silver Star. So there's a lot of heroism going on here.
Yeah, big time. In one company. I mean, in all over, but this specific company in particular. For the remainder of the day, the fighting is absolutely fierce, but progress is being made. Machine gun fire and mortar still rained down from Suribachi's heights as the Marines dug in on the night, having gained 1,000 yards on that day alone. That is a significant advance. This is why Ernest I. Thomas gets the Navy Cross, because he blew that area open so the attack could make that advance. That day, the Marines in Dave Severance's E-228 became the most decorated company in Marine Corps history for a single dawn to dusk action. 1 Medal of Honor, 2 Navy Crosses, 1 Silver Star, 7 Bronze Stars for Deed for Valor, and 17 Purple Hearts. Yikes. My goodness. One company in one day. One day. So typically of the Japanese, that night they hit 28 and the rest of Chandler Johnson's unit in a well-planned night raid. Remember we said there's no bonsai charges? There are no bonsai charges. This was apparently a very well-planned and they tried to execute a well-planned attack. They weren't just running out pell-mell to hit the American positions. They were actually trying to make their way to the American positions when they were backlit by the moon and players. And as soon as that happened, it's all over. The Marines rained mortar fire down and killed 60 Japanese. 28 make it through the mortar fire, and they're cut down by rifle machine gun fire in hand combat in about a 10-minute fight.
3 pairs of tubing.
The following day, in a cold driving rain, Johnson's men worked their way around the volcano, destroying any positions they ran into. No artillery fire or tank support or air support was provided because of the weather and luck. And base of Suribachi, it does get your can't get kind of touchy in terms of terrain. Because there is, I mean, it is a mountain, it's a volcano, but it is a mountain. And there is some sort of actual dirt, if you will, at the bottom of this thing. It can get kind of gross, and there was nothing could really make their way up around to that part of the mountain. Have you been down around that section?
Yeah, it's very jumbled. You have a lot of, there's a lot of boulders and also dirt, as you say. Basically, what's going to happen once you get to the actual part where the hill starts going up, your tank support is going to be gone. Your tanks can't get up there. There was no road there at the time. And so it's going to be a pure infantry fight from that point forward. You may get some direct fire support from tanks at the base of the hill, but you ain't going to have them with you there. So.
And I think that's what it's not very, I guess, maybe it is absorptive, but that water is running down the hill, so you're right towards it.
Yeah, they're, although a lot of them, I'm sure, would have been just delighted to have had access to water, it's fit for water, Japanese included, so.
For sure. By the end of the third day, the Marines held the base of Suribachi and cleared a section of the lower portion of the slopes. The next day, which would be day 4, Johnson would send his Marines up the slopes to clear it. The price had been high since D-Day. The 5th Marine Division alone had lost some 2,057 men from the beaches to the slopes of Suribachi, and killings and casualties as a whole. And the rush up hot rods was feared that it would actually be worse yet.
Which suggests that if your figures for KIA for, D plus 18 hours or 2,300, that says that it's our other division, it's 4 that has really taken the heavier casualties on D-Day than 5th.
Because if you look,
because the quarry is right there, and
exactly. Because if you look at the landing beaches, the 5th is taking rifle and machine gun fire, no doubt. I mean, they are. They're getting it from Suribachi. They're getting it from some of the pillboxes that they run into on that area. But that quarry is hanging there and just pouring it in to the 4th Division on the inside.
Yeah, you've got enfilading fire going right down the board down there in this section of the beaches, and then direct fire. Sorry, it's just,
No.
No,
Yeah, but that's a good observation, though, because, I mean, again, if you've been there, or even if you see bank pictures of it, I mean, that's a formidable nest of Japanese rockets positions, such as Oring.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
All right.
So, Johnson on day 4 had determined that his Marines are going to make it to the top of Hot Rocks, no matter what, by sundown. Like, he's going to get his people up there. He's had enough of this. They need to get this over. No, they need to get it over. They got other jobs they can do.
Yeah.
Not long after daybreak, he sent out his first patrols. The first few patrols made it about halfway up Suribachi and found surprising light resistance. A small patrol that actually made their way up to the top, but when they get up there, they see all these Japanese machine guns. They're unmanned, by the way, but the machine guns are there with ammunition stacked up all around them, and they're like, nope, they turn around and they fall behind, back down to the back end of the mountain. Around 0800, Johnson calls for Dave Severance again. He orders Severance's E-28 to send a patrol up the mountain, and this time make it to the top and stay there, no matter what. Johnson asked Dave who would lead the patrol, and Dave told Schreier, this is General Schreier, send him to me, please, Captain. That's what Johnson said to Severance. Schreier walks into Johnson's CV, and before he could say anything, Johnson handed him a pulled an American flag, an Italian adjutant, Lieutenant Greeley Wells, had swept from their transport to USS Missoula before the landing. Simply said, quote, if you get to the top, put this on. And I want to visit that quote for a second. If you get to the top, put this on. Yeah.
This is by no means assured.
Not at all.
Not at all. Bill, tell us about Schreier here.
Okay, so he assumed company exo duty due to the amount of the wounded. He assembled a 40-man combat patrol and began the climb at around 0830. Scouts from Delta and Foxtrot companies, that's not what they called it, were already on the slopes and pointed out the best and the quote-unquote easiest, nothing is easy, route to the top to Schreier and glanced up and said, yes, sure. Schreier, aside from his infantry, were demolition men, flamethrower operators, a radio operator, and 2 stretcher teams. They probably thought that wouldn't be enough. Expecting the worst, Schreier moved his men out single file and began the long, slow climb. Initially, going was easy. The Marines, Schreier and the lead, made quick progress up the slopes of Suribachi. As the height increased, however, the pace slowed. These guys began sucking wind. This is a hard climb, and the men had to take several breaks. Say that again?
I said John would know.
John,
That was refrained there. Like, I'm not going to say the buzzword. Not going to say the buzzword.
good discipline, good discipline. So, as they stopped, Schreier sent out flankers to protect the men who as yet not received any enemy fire at all. Dead Japanese were all around them. Some blown apart by shell fire, others clearly had been shot during the 4-day battle. And not a single live enemy was seen. John, you put this is really weird.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around that. Why is that? And I mean, to an extent, it's easier to defend horizontal ground because I can put multiple defensive emplacements that have mutually supportive fields of fire. When that terrain goes vertical, though, in one sense, if you've got an enemy that's just, literally outside the door, it's kind of harder to see them when the terrain goes vertical. I'm astonished by the lack of resistance that there was to this probe. And
I'll point out the direct fire from offshore bombardment is much more effective on the mountain than it is on the terrain. Right?
that's the point. Right. Yeah, that if, Japanese stick their heads out and try to actually, be physically on this hill, and every boatswain's mate in every ship, off So, yeah,
Target.
target, that may well account for some things, but it really is interesting. And I'm not saying that they walk, to the top or dance to the top, but they do get up there relatively easily, and it's a little baffling.
Yeah, they really do.
I want
Go ahead.
What I was going to say is the ships offshore, sailors watch through binoculars and then snake away at the volcano. And I'm going to interject here to say, I'm going to fill them in. Remember, Spruance is on the Indianapolis, his command ship. My friends, you had a bunch of friends who were ashore during this battle. All the Indianapolis survivors were friends of mine. And I heard several say we watched the flag go up on Suribachi. They did not. They were something like 200 miles away refueling when this was happening. So it was one of my sad duties to actually try to
Free hand.
it turns out they couldn't have seen it. But anyway, these sailors on other ships watching these guys go ashore, they were engaging.
Indeed, and that's what we were talking about before. There's LSTs that are now dumping their cargo ashore, on these landing beaches, and there's sailors watching this stuff. Because, like you were saying before, John, even when you're on the beach at Suribachi, you're on the beach at Iwo, and you're looking up at Suribachi, especially the
Yeah.
see any kind of movement that's going on. Anything.
Right.
And there are guys literally offshore in the destroyers that are really close to the shores, you know, with the binoculars, they're watching this. And it's like, you know, reality TV. It's like watching a football game because they're expecting these guys to get wiped out as they're going out there.
They're just pushed and wiped out.
So around 10:15, Schreier pokes his head up over the top of the crater on Suribachi's tip. He expects to see Japanese sitting there waiting on him. There's nothing there. Not a soul to be seen. Not a single shot had been fired during their ascent up the hill. Schreier signaled the rest of his men to hustle, and they scurried the rest of the way up and scoured the top of the volcano for any Japanese. In short order, there are some Japanese that start coming out. A gentleman named Harold Keller, you can hear his name in a minute, who was a former Marine raider, and veteran of Bougainville, was the first guy to see him. He was a DAR man. He emptied a magazine on 3 Japanese as they emerged from a cave on Suribachi's side, yelled, and ran towards Keller. A short firefight ensued once they get up to the top of the mountain, which all the Japanese were killed in the Marine system. No casualties. This was just Schreier's 40-man patrol that is engaging in this firefight. After the firefight, Schreier ordered 2 men to find something to raise the flag that he had been carrying on. A 7-foot section of water pipe was found on the top of the volcano, and Schreier, Hank Hansen, and Charles Lindbergh tied the flag to it with Bruce Thomas. Bruce Thomas, he helped them, and they hauled Oring up. So, you know, this is the first flag that's obviously referred to. Contrary to popular belief, we did not raise the flag to say, "Yay, it's our flag." It was a signal. It was a signal.
The island has been taken.
Exactly. Not at all. It was a signal to let Johnson know, Chandler Johnson know, that the patrol had made it to the top.
They did.
And yeah, that's all it was. That's all it was. Because they had a radio, but they didn't have enough wire to get all the way back down. Okay. So, which is kind of odd because there's a man who brings comms wire up there to establish a communication post. But that's all it was. It wasn't any kind of victorious thing. It was so Johnson was sitting there watching with binocs, sees him, and the flag goes up. He's like, okay, all right, we got the heights. That's what that's all that. So, as they're going up there and they raise this flag, you know, this is one of those instances in American history that you can't help but be proud of this. You cannot help but be proud of this incident. There's guys who are watching, as we said, this patrol climb the hill, and there's guys offshore, there's guys onshore who are watching this spectacle unfold. And when that little flag goes up, the place goes bananas. It really does. It honestly does. Ships are blowing their horns, their whistles, you know, everything's, it's like pandemonium, because this is day 5 now. Day 4 of the assault on Suribachi, but day 5 of the operation. It's been a horror show from the minute it started. This is the one symbol of the problem. You know, we've got the heights, the flag is up there. People just go absolutely bananas over this. Marine Corps photographer Lou Lowry had gone up with Schreier's patrol. He snapped a few pictures of them. I've got most of these pictures. I'll show you. They're awesome. Just absolutely awesome. So, we talked about the Japanese. Where the heck are the Japanese?
Well, you're sitting on top of them. Yeah, look, there's probably a thousand or more Japanese that are now on top of the VI. You know, they're all eating. Yeah, Merry Christmas.
You know,
all the Hollywood stars, you know, they too are like, something is afoot. And yeah, a number of them take this opportunity to make their presence known. And I was just going to say that the top of Suribachi is not a very big place. And I'm trying to just sort of mentally measure it in my mind. I would say it is no more than 30 yards across, maybe something like that.
From like the beach side to the back side, I'd say 30, maybe 40 at most. At most. And probably about as wide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it longer than your walk?
I didn't know that, man. But yeah, it is not a big place at all. And so it's not as if Schreier's patrol has a lot of tactical depth to fall back on. You get kicked off the top of this hill, you get kicked off the top of this hill, and now the Japanese have got the high ground, and they're going to rain fire down on you while you're trying to retreat. So yeah, not a happy.
Just leave the axial bar.
Right. You're going to pick up.
Interestingly enough, is that, I guess it's not interesting, I mean, it makes sense, but the Japanese, when they do come out of their holes and attack, they go right up to the top. They're trying to get rid of Schreier's 40-man patrol. Almost all of their fire is directed towards these guys. And I put in the notes that it was a short firefight, and I guess by firefight standards, it was short, but it was actually multiple firefights. It wasn't just once, it was like 5-6 times. The Japanese came out and they would direct fire because there's film footage of this stuff caught on film by Bill Janowski. We're going to talk about Janowski in just a second. Janowski, of course, went up in the second place. It was 2 hours later. It was actually about 2.5 hours when all this stuff goes down. So, that 2 hours after raising the first flag, Chandler Johnson decided that the larger flag should be put up. Again, he tapped Dave Severance for the job. This is his company at the top. By the way, Dave Severance never went to the top school. That was his company. Never went to the top. He ordered one of his squad leaders, a gentleman, Mike Strank, to get some men and go up and replace the flag and also establish communications with the press. It says that there was no communication with the press. Apparently, the radio was not working because there was never any kind of radio communication until this time. Strank picked Harlan Block, Ira Hayes, and Franklin Sousley, who grabbed a school of communications wire. Rennie Gagnon was ordered to bring the second flag up and bring the first flag back down to Chandler Johnson for safekeeping.
Yeah, and Seth, quick question though. Did Secretary Forrestal have something to do with this? Wasn't he here?
He was. Yes, he was. He was here. He was here. And I can't remember if it was the first flag or the second flag where he said that with that flag raising, there'll be a Marine Corps for 500 years. I think it was 400 years. I can't remember if it was the first or second flag.
So,
Either way, but you're 100% right, Dan, he was. And Forrestal said that he wanted that flag. And Johnson's like, no, you're not this flag. I'm not interested.
Secretary, yeah, but imagine today, Secretary of the Navy going to go active battle like this.
Combat zone, right?
It would never happen. It would never.
So, Strike Patrol, now pretty much devoid of Japanese gunfire, makes up this looks quickly. He rapidly explained the situation to Schreier, who just rolled his eyes. This guy's like, really? Come on.
You need a bigger flag.
Good God.
Yeah.
Upon reaching the top, Ira Hayes and Franklin Sousley found another piece of ring pipe drum pipe and secured the flag to the pipe. Strike, Block, Sousley, and Hayes all grabbed the pipe and began to raise the larger piece of drain pipe up with the flag on it. This thing was long, significantly longer, and heavier than the first one. 2 other Marines now identified as Harold Keller, the guy who opened fire from the top of the hill, and Harold Schultz rushed in and piled rocks around the base of the pole and then helped raise the flag. In seconds it was done. It was literally just that fast. It was done. Marines thought nothing of it. Walked up. Bill, tell us about the rest of it.
Yeah, so this is so incredible. Associate Press photographer Joe Rosenthal, who had accompanied Strike up the mountain as a combat photographer, was
In the real world, you trim it up
was
using
standing
special
on a pile of
cutters.
rocks
You should have them.
next to Bill Genos, who was not a civilian, right? He was a Marine, who had a movie camera. Genos asked Rosenthal, "I'm not in your way, am I?" Joe Rosenthal replied, "Oh, no. Oh, wait, there it goes, Bill." Rosenthal had just enough time to raise his camera. And you listen to his interview about this, he says he didn't even really have time to look through it and make sure the photograph was posed properly. He just quickly his shutter and snapped one image. This had to be providential. I mean, mean, the fact that I'm a photographer, and I can take 500 images to get one good one. You take one image, you know it's not going to come out. Garbage. It's garbage. Just the way it works. The image caption on February 23rd, 1945 is one of the most iconic photographs ever taken in all of history. Not the most iconic military photograph, marine photograph, or combat photograph. One of the most iconic photographs that is defined not just the war, it defined a service, it defined a country, it defined a source of courage, patriotism, pride, and, just, it took 2 days. People forget, we could actually electronically transmit photographs even before there was such a thing as a fax machine. But 2 days later, this Rosenthal image was splattered across every newspaper in the free world. It was iconic. Bill Jenhouse would never see the video footage, which you've all seen, the video footage. Rosenthal didn't do that, Jenhouse.
Yeah, I can't find
He would never live to see
it. It was just
because
real
on
good
March
set of
4th,
flush colors.
1945, he would be killed while shining a flashlight into a cave that's still been occupied by Japanese. The cave was thought to be empty, clearly it was not. Unable to retrieve his body, Marines sealed the cave with satchel charges. So to this day, the man who shot that famous video is still on Iwo Jima. And as you said, Forrestal knew his political sense was such that he knew this would guarantee the existence of the Marine Corps forever. But that photograph makes so much more from that.
I mean, it's hard to put it in words. I mean, everybody's famous photograph. I mean, I agree. It's probably one of the most famous photographs. It is one of the most famous photographs ever taken. And I mean, just the struggle.
Use this
Anybody
to hold them together.
which hopefully you feel like it was. The struggle that it was just to get to that.
So if this was going to be on something that spins, if it's not fucking perfect, it'll wander all over the place. You have to make sure it's completely perfect. But I don't have to worry about that for this application here.
You can spend the muscle power as you're trying to put this thing on. Yeah, it's the thing. So yeah, it's an action shot.
The right shutter speed, everything was in focus. This stuff doesn't happen like that. It just doesn't, right? This is remarkable. And now 6 days, the battle goes on for another month.
Yeah, that's the problem, and I think in the popular conception, people look at that picture like, oh, the battle was over. It's like, no, we're just at the beginning of this meat grinder. That's the downer of this whole thing. We've got another month plus.
We do need to talk about the fact that some of these guys were misidentified initially, and system. There's some irritated Navy guys who say if it hadn't been that the Navy foreman was initially identified in the photograph, the Marines would never have cared to validate that we had the names right. They just wanted to take the Navy guy out of the picture. But this was actually started by an amateur historian, right? Who had nothing to do with that.
Sure, 100%, but there was actually misidentification even in 1945. So, because as soon as Forrestal sees this picture, and later Roosevelt sees this picture, saying, who are these guys? I want them home right now. Because to your point, Bill, they recognize a political opportunity in Syria, and they wanted to send these guys on a war boat, which
They did a hell of a lot of war with these dudes, right?
Exactly. So they want to know exactly who these guys are, and they want them off that island like yesterday. And there was some misidentification initially in 1945. Hank Hansen, the guy that we talked about earlier, who was friends with Don Rule, the Medal of Honor recipient who threw himself on the Navy. Hank Hansen was initially identified in that picture. And Ira Hayes was the guy that said, that ain't Hansen, it's Harlan Block. I know because I was with him. And the idea is like, this is me, this is Harlan, this is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so there was misidentification then. just from that aspect. Another guy, two guys, of course, that are identified initially, they are the guys in that second flag raising, exactly to your point, Bill, I think until 2016, were thought to be Renegade and John Bradley. And I don't want to denigrate anybody's post-war memory at all, but both of those guys, they were not in those photographs. Like, they both knew that they were not in that photograph. 100%, no question.
But there's a rumor that Bradley at least was in the first flag raising. Not true.
No, because the first flag raising is Lindbergh, Schreier, Ernest Thomas, and dang, the other guy, I can't remember his name, God bless his heart.
Now we have to go back to the notes.
Now I gotta go back to the notes. But,
Keller.
Keller. No, not Keller.
Salsa.
No, he's in the second. Okay. Goodness gracious. Oh, here it is. Hank Hansen, Harold Schreier, Charles Lindbergh, and Ernest Thomas. Those are the guys that raised the first flag. Doc Bradley is with that patrol. There is no question. He's in some of the footage. Like, if you see these guys, like, ambling around on top of the box, the Janowski's footage, you can see Bradley in there because it's the only corpsman up there. You can tell by his what do they call it? Unit 3.
Yeah, slightly different uniform.
Yeah,
He's got medical kits.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, so you can see Bradley there. He was definitely there. But did he raise the flag? Either of them? No. He did help take down the first one. That is indisputable because, again, you can see him in the pictures. Because as the first flag is coming down, the second one goes up. It's not simultaneous, but it's not far off. This was a picture, which I'll show here, of the first flag being like laying horizontal, and the guys are taking the flag off the pole, and the second flag's already up. So, in some of that footage, you see Doc Bradley. He's definitely there, but he did not raise that second flag. And so much so that just to set the record straight right now, the guys who did raise that flag, there were 6 United States Marines. There were Mike String, Harlan Block, Franklin Sousley, Ira Hayes, Harold Schultz, and Harold Keller. And in 2016, amateur historians were able to basically forensically identify the other two guys through their uniforms, like through their gear. Like, one of them had a helmet strap hanging loose and all this other kind of stuff. One of them had a wedding ring thing up,
Helmet.
right.
Yeah.
Minor, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And some of that, of course, is in response to Bradley's book, Flag of Our Fathers, which came out in 2000. That was, Jim Hornfisher was his agent back then. Anyway, the amount of forensic brain power that has been thrown at trying to figure out who these 6 dudes were is really impressive.
Yeah, impressive. And finally, the Corps did admit twice that they had misidentified, or actually 3 times technically, that they had misidentified the flag raisers. And I believe that 2016 was the last time. And
Right.
correctly identified all the men who did raise the flag. Ironically enough, neither Schultz nor Keller ever received until now recognition for their roles in the famous image until after their deaths. However, there is evidence in forms of letters that Keller tried to say after the war. It's like, yo, that's me.
Right.
It's not, he didn't even say that's not Bradley or Gagnon or whatever. He said, that's me. And there's evidence that the United States Marine Corps basically said, shut up. So, anyway.
Sit down and
Not a good lunch.
No, not a good look, but we know who they are now, and that's most important. All right. Well, gentlemen, I think we're going to wrap this meat grinder up for part 1 here on Iwo. We're going to have to cover this sucker the great 2.5 hours. We're going to have to cover the rest of this then in another episode. Is there anything you guys want to leave off or leave with before we wrap this?
Yeah, other than the fact, that this is the teaser, right? That we've now been fighting on Iwo Jima for a grand total of 5 days, and there are still, more than a month's worth of combat here that has to take place to secure this godforsaken island. Yeah,
and I know how much you love the movie Flags of Our Fathers, Seth, because it's so incredibly accurate. like saying cynically here. But the one line I do remember Ira Hayes that I think it probably correctly reflects his attitude, I'm not sure he actually said it, was the point of where he says, yeah, that was on day 6, we were there for another month, dude. You know, where
Right.
you,
Yeah. Right.
he was right about that.
Yeah.
Ira Hayes was a bad
Sure
shit.
they don't run.
There was post-war, there was a lot of racism going through. Just to put it mildly, when talking about Ira Hayes, he was obviously Pima Indian, was Native American. He did have trouble with alcohol. He did have some massive post-traumatic stress issues, big time, even during the war, because he himself was a combat veteran, he was a Marine. The Ira Hayes is one of the badder Marines that you will ever hear about. He was the real deal. He was legit. And anybody who slanders Ira Hayes is legit. But I mean, Hayes was legit.
He's a great man.
Yeah, he had demons, unfortunately.
Right. Because a lot of these guys did. Yeah.
All right, gang. I guess we should wrap up this bad boy because there's 32 more days. Not that we're going to be 32 more episodes, but there's 32 more days of the indescribable violence on Iwo Jima.
2020 hindsight after action report, we should have split this Iwo Jima battle up into 3 episodes, not 2.
So with that, we want to thank you for listening in on our conversation. Please subscribe to the Unauthorized History of Pacific War podcast wherever you receive your podcast. Give us a rating and review. We appreciate it. If you want to look at the video version of this, if you're not already doing so, look at the YouTube channel called the Unauthorized History of Pacific War podcast. If you have a question or comment, send us an email at unauthorizedpacificpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, my name is Seth Perrin. I want to thank you very much for listening and for watching. John, my buddy, as always.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Bill, bring us home.
And we'll see you again for the 2nd episode on Iwo Jima next week.
34 years. Shit, I'll be back. I gotta go.